Mathematics. Abstract, immutable, and as old as civilization. It's the language we use to describe and understand the world around us. From artificial intelligence and cryptography to engineering and economics, mathematics gives us the tools to predict, model, and design the increasingly complex world we live in. To progress the state of the art, every 4 years sees mathematicians from all over the world come together for one of the world's biggest mathematical events. Now, here in Valencia, Spain, we're ready to join the thousands of delegates attending the 2019 International Congress on Industrial and Applied Mathematics. It's ICIAM 2019, and we're ICIAM TV. Welcome back to ICIAM TV and day 2 of the International Congress on Industrial and Applied Mathematics. From cryptography to collective dynamics, this is the place to be, to see how mathematicians are applying state-of-the-art mathematics to some of the toughest real-world problems. Today, we'll be focusing on the themes of social networks and finance. With an increasingly connected society, ever more complex computing networks, as well as a financial system that brings diverse economies all over the world, the role of mathematics in understanding and managing complexity in all its forms is ever more important. Today, we'll look at how researchers and institutions around the world are using maths to look at issues including the dynamics of large crowds and the growth of developing economies.
Everybody has an opinion about the opinion dynamics. Namely, one tries to understand how the interactions between different opinions of different people and how the influence of one person on another gives rise or emerges into either consensus or different opinions of different parties.
It's extremely important for the development of the countries, developing countries, emerging economies, that people there have their own expertise to produce, to maintain, to optimize, so to develop further.
Where mathematics can kind of help to model traffic like as a flow. I mean, there are a few big problems where maths can make a difference.
First up, it's time for me to hand over to our resident mathematician, Professor Ortegón. Today he's talking to Professor Eitan Tadmor, whose ICIAM 2019 lecture looks at emergent behaviour in collective dynamics. Over to you, Professor.
Professor Tadmor has made major contribution to the theory of nonlinear partial differential equation and also in numerical simulation of this kind of problems. Nowadays, he's working on collective behavior of population. The question is, why are you interested in this subject?
So the beginning, the starting point is quite interesting. In 2007, my daughter at the time was an undergraduate student in mathematics in Tel Aviv University, and as part of her project, it was a seminar on mathematical biology, and I offered her to look at a paper that just came out by Cooker and Smale, by now a celebrated model for flocking. She then continued to study in Columbia. Today she's working in Google. A long time ago she left already collective dynamics, but here I am still stuck with self-organized collective dynamics of flocking and other models.
Are we talking only on flock of birds and school of fishes, or there is something more than that?
So in fact, collective dynamics is an umbrella for a type of behavior where there is a crowd of so-called agents or social particles where they interact in between, and then from the interaction within, what comes about is some unity where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And this applies not just to biology in the examples of flock of birds, it could be how bacteria form cell tissues, it could be how opinions form consensus of different parties. In many aspects, in different scales, you have essentially collective dynamics where you try to understand the overall phenomena, the patterns that emerges from the interaction between the parties involved.
Okay, so I think that the diffusion of opinions even can be a subject too.
Everybody has an opinion about the opinion dynamics. Namely, one tries to understand how the interactions between different opinions of different people and how the influence of one person on another gives rise or emerges into either consensus or different opinions or different parties. A guy by the name Craig Reynolds proposed a paradigm for the rules of engagements, which consist of repulsion and alignment and cohesion, is a set of rules which translate into the collective dynamics, the collective interactions, and give rise to the emergence of what we see as flocks or some larger patterns. To date, we still do not have an overall mathematical theory for that, but we have a better understanding, and the main feature there is the propagation of information. So the key element in the collective dynamics is to keep talking so that information will propagate throughout the group. Global effect of emergence is important for the global dynamics that involved in this case.
So as an expert on hyperbolic phenomena, do you think that Navier-Stokes equation will be solved in the years to come?
Well, it turns out that when there is a large crowd, the description of this large collective of large crowds has to do with Navier-Stokes-like equation. They are not precise, but the behavior again suffers or enjoys the same difficulties that we know in Navier-Stokes. So we know more about one-dimensional behavior, we know less about two-dimensional behavior, but we still do, and we know very little about the three-dimensional, which exactly like in the Navier-Stokes, in the physical terms for the physical particles, there are open questions, and whether or not these questions will be solved in the short time, it's difficult to assess because I do not know in which metric to understand how far are we from the ultimate solution. But what is interesting is I think that the journey itself reveals many mechanisms that will benefit mathematics and science in general, in the sense that we either define the mechanism or we reveal a new mathematical methodologies, and the same applies to the theory of collective dynamics, that we try to understand and to reach the answer for this Clay Prize, understanding Navier-Stokes in three dimensions.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much, Professor Tadmor, and I hope you enjoy Valencia and enjoy Spain too.
Thank you very much. This is my first visit in a beautiful city of Valencia, really one of the most beautiful cities I've seen. Thank you.
Fascinating stuff from Professor Tadmor there. Now, mathematics is all about describing complexity in the simplest terms possible. And next up, we head to the Department of Statistics at Stanford University, where mathematicians are applying these kind of tools to a wide range of areas, from quasi-Monte Carlo sampling to risk management for opioid addiction. First though, let's take a look at the full lineup of special features on ICIAM TV.
The Stanford Statistics Department has often been a source of influential ideas in statistics. We've had ideas like the bootstrap and the lasso, compressed sensing, and it goes all the way back to the 1950s with Stein shrinkage and many more things in between.
The main goals of the department are to pursue research in statistical methodology and to train PhD students. The department also has an important role in the undergraduate interdisciplinary mathematical and computational sciences major, and we also have a master's program in statistics.
So you can think of three stages in a statistics problem. There's somebody talking to a user, learning an exact problem that they have. There's somebody developing a method for those problems, and there are people doing deep theory on how those methods could work or should work. And most of the faculty in this department actually inhabit two or more stages in that pipeline. This kind of pipeline approach helps us be stronger across the spectrum.
Dimension reduction in statistics for biologists involves making representations which are low dimensional so we can visualize and make plots and have a good idea of what the uncertainties involved are, at the same time as seeing important interactions. Dimension reduction involves complicated matrix analysis and functional analysis, and biologists don't understand these black boxes. So we try to provide valid first-order approximations that they can then refine later on.
Working with microbiome data is both interesting and challenging. You can't apply classical statistical methods and tools to analyze them because the data is both very noisy and sparse. And so as a statistician, you have to develop new tools to understand what is going on in the data, and this is very rewarding. Working with Professor Holmes prepared me to be a better data scientist. You start from raw data and work your way up to understand what are the patterns and structure in the data and gain any insights that are useful.
Mathematical and computational science is an interdisciplinary major for students who are interested in tackling analytical and quantitative skills in science, industry, and society. I see MCS as a quantitative liberal arts major, which provides intellectual foundations for quantitative work, whether that's in industry or in graduate studies in a STEM field. But importantly, it's also become increasingly relevant in other fields, such as in the social sciences, education, and law, because there's a need to analyze data and to use data meaningfully in society today.
Data Science for Social Good is a summer program where groups of students work on data science problems with a social impact component. Students will work on a variety of projects. For example, our students are partnering with the VA, where they'll look at opioid use, help to develop risk scores, and create visualizations that help clinicians and patients understand opioid use.
My experience with mathematical and computational science so far has been incredibly challenging, but also very formative. I've been able to apply the things that I've learned in the classes here to an incredible array of different real-world topics and problems. And that ability to problem solve would not have come without the rigor and breadth that mathematical and computational science offers.
One of the things that I find quite interesting is randomized quasi-Monte Carlo sampling. Many of the problems in applied math and engineering involve sampling a very high dimensional function. If you have tens or hundreds of input variables, you just can't look everywhere. But if you sample it strategically with a little bit of randomness, then you turn that into a statistics problem that you can then solve with statistical methods. A related area called uncertainty quantification involves, among other things, figuring out which of those hundreds of inputs are the really important ones. They're not usually equally important, and you might not know ahead of time.
I started working with Professor Owen during my second year of graduate school, and he had done some prior research on combining data from different sources, and I was really interested in approaching that from a causal inference perspective. My dissertation focuses on making causal conclusions from data from different sources, particularly when some of it's experimental and some of it's observational. The Stanford Statistics Department curriculum provides a really rigorous foundation for all of the graduate students, and I found that really helpful because it helped me to develop my thinking about the kinds of research I wanted to do, and then ultimately to become more of an applied researcher later in my graduate career.
This is an exciting time for statistics and for statisticians. Data is everywhere. Sciences, engineering, social sciences, everybody has data. Companies have data, universities have data, and statisticians are getting involved with people from other fields, economics, computer science. They all have things to say about data. There's this emerging notion of data science, and I'm happy to say that Stanford University has a big organizational commitment to being a prominent player in data science.
The Sue Buchin Prize recognises the contribution of individuals to mathematics in emerging countries. And this year's prize winner, Professor Giulia di Nunno, has been using her expertise to help build the economies of countries in Africa and supporting the development of high-level education in mathematics across the continent. Giulia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, many congratulations. Maybe you could tell us how you started to focus on the development of mathematics in Africa.
I would say a little bit by chance. I had the opportunity very early, maybe 2000 was that or thereabouts, to participate to a SAMHSA conference in Botswana for the first time. And I just discovered a whole world of mathematicians, enthusiasts, very good, and a lot of students extremely engaged there. And so I just took all other opportunities to go and visit.
What would you say is the importance of developing high-level mathematics in emerging economies?
I think it's fundamental. Mathematics is at the basis of the theoretical sciences, but also the applied sciences. It's extremely important for the development of the countries, developing countries, emerging economies, that the people there have their own expertise to produce, to maintain, to optimize, so to develop further.
What more could the international mathematics community be doing, do you think?
Developing countries are in some way different, because some of them are really developing and there is a fast progression, and there are some others that unfortunately are left a little behind. So the international community should be very aware of this, and also to produce occasions like these big conferences, maybe through sponsor scholarships for participating, to give some space of visibility to the research that is produced in these countries, and also to have chances to organize a platform of exchange of knowledge.
What would you say is the biggest impact that your work has had?
I'm happy to say that in some ways the early projects that we were running together with the Ministry of Development from Norway, these had produced an enormous numbers of PhD students and master students, and these students are now professors in the Southern Africa area.
Of course, this is not the only focus, the sole focus of your work. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing in applied mathematics.
Well, recently we have started a new project that's called STORM, that stands for Stochastics in Time-Space Risk Models. And this is all dedicated to stochastic models that are developing in time dynamics, but not only through time, but also in space. And these kind of models we are interested in usually don't have the classical features from the point of view of dynamic evolution. And what we are interested in is not only to describe the processes, actually we call them random fields because they move in time and space, but also to produce the necessary calculus so that we can, for example, make decisions out of the development of these processes. So the applications I've been interested in are always within economy and finance, but in fact this is actually directed also to energy, to turbulence, to wind, for example, because of course there is a space dimension as well.
And finally, of course, you've got your prize lecture coming up. What will you be talking about in that?
I'm talking about time change, and this is a method that has a long history, and to describe complicated stochastic structures using first of all a simple structure of which we know a lot, and then using a time change process. And this process is making the time moving faster or slower, and in this way we represent the original one. And what we do is to use calculus techniques to go beyond the representation, but to allow for decision making, optimal solutions, and things of this sort. By the way, this is linked with the use of information that is carried by these processes.
Well, Giulia, thank you so much for joining us. Many congratulations again, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much.
Great work there, as mathematics plays an essential role, not just in developed economies, but all over the world. Now to Tokyo, where mathematicians in the mid-20th century helped turn Japan's economy around by developing a brand new field of research.
After the World War II, Japan was prohibited to continue research on aeronautical engineering. The faculty members of this university working in that area then made up their minds to build a new engineering discipline under the name of mathematical engineering, which meant not only to apply existing mathematics to practical problems, but also to create new theory and method therefrom. This turned out to be a timely decision because the world soon witnessed the emergence of digital computers and information theory, which opened extensive fields to cultivate with mathematics. At the beginning of this century, we changed the department name from mathematical engineering to mathematical informatics, putting emphasis on its connection to information technology. But the basic idea remains the same. Our undergraduate program requires or encourages students to study not only mathematics and computer science, but also physics and engineering, so that they learn how to model real-world problems. We believe this is crucial to our research activity and their future careers.
Contemporary cryptography provides us many practical applications, and it has become a fundamental tool in information technology. The security of the widely used RSA crypt system is based on the hardness of factorization problem. However, the factorization problem is no longer secure in the era of quantum computer. Therefore, in our group, we are investigating post-quantum cryptography, which aims at constructing next-generation cryptography secure against quantum computers. The security of post-quantum cryptography based on, for example, the hardness of solving the shortest vector problem in lattices or finding a solution of multivariate polynomials. So we need to keep investigating the security of post-quantum cryptography in order to bring it in practice.
In my laboratory, we are considering special numerical methods called structure-preserved methods. So let us explain this with an example. And suppose we hope to simulate superconductivity. And this is mathematically modeled by Ginzburg equations, and its dynamics is governed by a big physical feature that the energy goes down as time goes. But if we simply put this model into a computer, then the energy can blow up, which is unphysical and unbearably wrong. So in order to handle this difficult problem, we pay attention to a mathematical structure behind the special property, which is a gradient structure. And we order computers to pay the same attention to this gradient structure. Then the energy goes down beautifully, and accordingly, we see beautiful bursts of vortices, while in a careless simulation, we find catastrophes.
I am modeling prostate cancer mathematically. We assume that the dynamics of cancer is represented by some systems which can be described by certain differential equations. Then we are trying to search an optimal treatment schedule based on the results calculated by the models personally adjusted for each patient. I hope that someday our research benefits someone's health. Department of Mathematical Informatics is the best environment for students who are strongly interested in applying mathematics in real-world problems. Now I am really enjoying working on such an interdisciplinary field.
I'm developing algorithms for machine learning and data analysis from the viewpoint of combinatorial optimization. In particular, I'm interested in the greedy algorithm. Despite its simplicity, the greedy algorithm performs well in a variety of applications. The goal of my research is unraveling a mystery of why and when the greedy algorithm works well.
I believe pure mathematics can provide insight into open problems in science and engineering. In my research, I look for mathematical properties that determine when a physical structure is rigid or flexible. These structures could be as big as a bridge or a building, or as small as a protein or a crystal. Although the applications are different, the underlying mathematics is the same. By understanding the mathematics better, we can build faster algorithms, which will allow scientists and engineers to quickly predict when a structure has the properties they want.
I'm working on how to design secure, privacy-friendly, and fair IT systems using cryptography. It is important that these features such as security and fairness is ensured mathematically, and the industry really appreciates the output, the contributions from the department to ensure these properties theoretically rigorously. As a president of ICIAM, I really appreciate their continuous leadership from the start of the community 28 years ago. ICIAM, together with Mathematical Society of Japan, is working hard to welcome you at ICIAM 2023, which will be held for the first time in Japan.
Now to New York to take a look at some of the mathematicians working at IBM. Based on the capabilities of IBM's state-of-the-art quantum computer, researchers are working on new algorithms for application in the financial industry, as well as taking what they know and applying it to areas like genomics and artificial intelligence.
What I love about mathematics, it forces you to have a consistent formalism that brings everything together. It allows you to conceive new ideas and progress the state of the art.
Math connects the intuitive ideas and concepts that we have to reality. We might have a vague idea of a high-dimensional whole in a multi-dimensional space, but it is made precise by persistent homology theory.
My name is Stefan Wörner. I'm the global leader for quantum finance and optimization in IBM Research. Working on quantum computing as a mathematician is very exciting at the moment because you can contribute to the full stack, analyzing and developing new algorithms, actually optimizing these algorithms to map them on real hardware, but also to actually operate a quantum computer.
My name is Lior Horesh. I'm senior manager of the Mathematics of AI group. Mathematics is really the steam engine of AI. Concepts that come from statistical mechanics or even physics-oriented approach. All of these are bringing fresh, new understanding into how AI can and should work.
I am Lakshmi Parida. I lead computational genomics at IBM Research. We are in the throes of a genomic revolution. And just like in physics, math is playing a pivotal role. What can be more exciting than understanding the genome of an organism using math?
I'm Chit Apte, and I'm currently chair of the IBM Research Mathematical Sciences Council. What's exciting about math today in IBM Research is kind of its centrality to so many different threads that are of high priority to IBM in the directions it's taking. The mathematical sciences community at IBM Research is about 200 strong. We are embedded in our various technical priorities. So there are math scientists working in quantum computing, in artificial intelligence, in security. We want the math scientists to be close to the problem that they're tackling. At the same time, they work across these different priorities as a group of mathematicians who can then exchange ideas.
IBM Research is a great place to work and to do math. We can work on fundamental research on the one hand side, but we also have the contact to clients and business units, which give us feedback from a completely different perspective.
We have the flexibility to conceive new research directions and pursue them. People are excited about how much mathematics can contribute to some of those fundamental challenges that we face.
IBM Research produces immense opportunities for synergies across groups, across disciplines. There is this clash of abstract ideas with real-world challenges, which is made possible here.
Quantum computing is a fundamentally new way of computing. It leverages the principles of quantum mechanics to process information. We're working on quantum algorithms that can achieve a quadratic speedup for Monte Carlo simulation. When working on quantum algorithms, you need math everywhere. To formulate the actual problem, to design the new algorithms, and often these algorithms are hybrid quantum classical algorithms where you need to understand both worlds, the quantum and the classical. We're looking at some financial applications for quantum computing, such as portfolio optimization, risk analysis, or option pricing. At the moment, we have small systems available to experiment with, but in the near future, when these systems grow, we hope to be able to demonstrate an actual quantum advantage.
In scientific discovery, we typically have some observations, and we are trying to come up with a mathematical model that would fit those points that we have. E equals mc squared is something that would work here, it would work in space. Unfortunately, when we look into what the state of the art in AI, They are not generalizing very well, so they are really learning specific instances, and they require a massive amount of data to learn. In our belief, bringing some of those fundamental, deep theoretical notions from mathematics is something that can be a game changer. We are now looking into taking symbolic regression, but doing that from a principled mathematical perspective that allow us to find globally optimal mathematical formulas, demonstrating that a certain expression is indeed derivable from first principles.
Computational genomics is a broad discipline that aims at understanding biology at a molecular level based on genomics, with algorithmic and mathematical approaches. So it's at the crossroads of biology, algorithmics, and mathematics. Every step of almost everything that we do, mathematics plays a big role. There are a few areas that we are working on, and in all of these, we use orthodox as well as unexpected and unorthodox approaches. We have used tensor learning in blood cancer, and we have used topological data analysis, or TDA, in microbiomes, and also melding of logic and TDA in Alzheimer's.
It's a great time to be at IBM right now because we are at the forefront of many fundamental breakthroughs that we have been making in the information technology business. Every breakthrough we are making are being enabled by advances we make in mathematical sciences. Nothing could be better than working to drive these advances that we are seeing happening today in IBM.
As we've seen throughout the meeting so far, mathematics has a major impact on the lives of everyone. Communicating about the important role of mathematics, as well as science in general, is of course essential. So we took a visit to Valencia's Science Museum to find out how they're getting kids and grown-ups excited about science. It is prohibited not to touch, not to feel, not to think. That's the slogan and ethos behind the Valencia Science Museum, where the goal is to inform visitors about the evolution of life, science and technology in an interactive, enjoyable and memorable way. Built on the former riverbed of the Turia River, the museum is one of 5 main elements which make up the Valencia City of Arts and Sciences. The striking white architecture set against Valencia's blue skies is the work of architects Santiago Calatrava and Felix Candela, and is considered one of the 12 treasures of Spain. Mars, the Conquest of a Dream has been a truly international collaboration, co-produced alongside the Telefonica Foundation with the cooperation of several institutions, including the European Space Agency. The interactive exhibition celebrates the fascination humans have held for the planet for over 4,500 years, since it was first dubbed the Red Planet. With the opportunity to hear what your voice would sound like and discover what your weight would be on Mars, as well as looking to the future in terms of the planet's human conquest, the exhibition is engaging visitors, young and old. The language of mathematics is taking centre stage in Valencia this week at ICIAM 2019. And here at the Science Museum, language is also being discussed in the temporary exhibition Talking Brains. It's a collaboration between paleanthropologists, neurologists, psychologists, neurolinguists and computer experts, where visitors can discover the meaning of language to mankind and how it's linked to our biology, from learning language in the womb to how fast we think. 2 stimulating exhibits, well worth a visit. Now, as we round off today's show, we decided to ask delegates what they think is the most important societal challenge mathematics can address. Let's see what they had to say.
I would say there are a few, challenges where maths can make a difference. So one is energy, or also in the steel industry, metals, designing materials with, designing cars, lighter cars with more smarter materials and things like that. Also traffic control, where mathematics can kind of help to model traffic like as a flow. There are a few big problems where maths can make a difference, so definitely many.
It is helping in artificial intelligence and data analysis, so cryptography kind of things.
Trying to overcome all these security problems in the world, like encryption and decryption.
Machine learning and fast computations, all of the technology and all of the computers and everything, you need to use math. It's behind everything that's going on.
Climate change is definitely one of the most important challenges, and the climate models are based upon mathematics. So here's a clear problem where mathematics can help to solve.
Particularly in this period, math has a great role in changing our world. We are facing problems in which we have to deal with complex and big data, and without math, I think these problems cannot be faced.
Well, that's it for today's show. What a busy show it's been. We've talked about crowd dynamics, delved into optimization tools, and taken a look at how mathematics is impacting developing economies. Tomorrow we'll be turning our attention to the world of engineering and technology, covering PDEs and Grad's Moment system and much more. Until then, make sure that you know where to watch, and we'll make sure to see you there.